Welcome to everyone and to our next installment of our Diversity Saints program here at the University of San Diego. And we're delighted to have Laura James with us this evening to discuss Black is Blessed, a reflection on her art. Laura describes herself as an artist and illustrator and a self-taught artist who has now worked for over 30 years as an artist. By the way, I am Jeffrey Burns. I'm the director of the Harp Center for Catholic Thought and Culture, the sponsor of this program tonight. But back to Laura, she grew up in Brooklyn and told me she has 8 sisters. She became fascinated with Ethiopian Christian art, which has deeply impacted her art. Her website says Laura is pleased to help Black people see themselves in their sacred texts. And I might add, she helps us all to see things better. She adds she wanted to create a more inclusive representation of biblical figures, and she has accomplished that. I first became aware of Laura when I used to process the Book of the Gospels lectionary that she did the cover and illustrations for. It was published in 2001 by Liturgy Training Publications. And it's a beautiful Book of the Gospels if you would like to encounter that. Liturgy Training Press said this about Laura. She said, "We like Laura's work because it is distinct, memorable, popular, and timeless, telling stories in a simple, fresh, and direct way." But Laura's work is not limited to the Gospels. She also has done a series on strong women, and most recently, she did an icon of Saint Phoebe, one of the first Catholic women deacons, and it was presented to Pope Francis as part of the Discerning Deacons program. She's also currently working on a series that she is writing and illustrating called the Nanny series. So we're delighted to welcome Laura to the University of San Diego, although it's virtually, and we'll hope that one day we'll have you here on campus, Laura.
Oh,
So
that
further
would be
ado,
great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with people in this way, from, not just across the country, but all over the world now with Zoom. I've been doing more of these kinds of forums and it's really a pleasure. So I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully I could do that quickly. Okay, it might take a little bit it was a little slow earlier. I like this title, Black is Blessed. I'll show it later, but someone wrote a little piece about one of my paintings and she titled it Black is Blessed. And it was kind of weird because I didn't immediately understand what she meant by that. But, thinking about my work and reading the piece that she did, it really sort of fits. Okay, there we go. So this first slide, I usually start with this. This is a picture from a children's Bible that I had when I was, less than 10. We used to go to a Brethren church, which they sort of frowned upon art, pictures on the walls or anything like that. The music was very, we had a piano. So it was very low key, I guess you could say, the church. And, we weren't allowed to have images of biblical figures adorning the church, or even really, we weren't supposed to, really look at these things, but we had children's Bibles and they had pictures. So we couldn't really get away from it. And, this is just one Bible that we had. I remember we had at least 3 or 4, and the picture, this was in the 70s, Jesus was always blonde with blue eyes, always. Never was he anything else besides blonde and blue eyed. And as you can see in the first image, the Black person, we can assume they're supposed to be the Black person, is a servant in the background, with a very distorted looking face. And, once again, Jesus is blonde around all of the rest of the people who are not blonde. And, I didn't really make the connection so much when I was a young person, but as I got to be older and, reflecting on these pictures, I realized that, it kind of I don't know how to put it. It just sort of made me feel like an outsider, let's say, in this church where, there's a lot going on. I don't really understand, exactly what they're saying, as a person who's less than 10 years old, it doesn't always make sense. We're not supposed to have pictures, and then we've got these kind of distorted pictures that don't seem to include me. So it was always just sort of a weird experience, going to church and encountering the Bible and all of this. So when I was about 18, I was walking around in Brooklyn, and I saw this book in the window of a store in my neighborhood, just and I was like, wow, this is cool. They're Black angels. I had never seen anything like that, and I looked through the book, and I thought that maybe I wasn't painting or anything like that at that time. I was interested in photography and art in general, but I hadn't really done any art. But I thought that if I could practice doing this type of thing, because everything was outlined in black, it looked sort of, like a cartoon or something. It looked sort of easy. So I bought the book, and I said, hey, I'm gonna copy some of these pictures and see where it goes. So just before I go on with my work, I'll just mention that Ethiopia has like a very long tradition of Christianity. They've been a Christian country since the 4th century, when they were converted by Italian missionaries who were shipwrecked actually in Ethiopia. So it has a very long history of Christianity. These churches are 3 of 11 rock-hewn churches that were sculpted out of the rock in Ethiopia. They have a very proud tradition of Christianity there. These are a few original Ethiopian Christian art pieces, panel paintings, and manuscripts. These are some of the things that I saw early on as I got that first book, and then I got a few more books. There wasn't really a lot out there at that time, so it was sort of hard to find the art. But these are some things that I saw early on. And I really like the idea of having, words on the page with the art. Obviously, these are manuscripts, so, they're books and all. But, it was something that I was attracted to, actually being able, not that I could read this language, but the idea that you could read the story as well as see the pictures was interesting to me. So these are just a few pictures from that Ethiopian Magic Scrolls book. I came to learn that there are many, many stories in Ethiopia. I don't know if you call it folklore or what have you, but, full of stories, lots of stories that, of saints and just all different kinds of things. So these were 3 images from that book that I really liked. So here I'm showing my work. So on the left side, that 9 praises was, maybe like the first or second thing that I did, obviously copying from the Ethiopian Magic Scrolls book. And then, actually later on that year, this other piece is a piece that I did as well. So I was really, I was painting a lot and just practicing, painting, and it was enjoyable. There was no I was going to say there was no reason for me to be doing it. I mean, it was like a hobby for sure. My parents actually had just moved back to their country, to Antigua, and left my sister and I in our family home. So, we were supposed to go to college, which we did most of the time, but I had a lot of free time, and I didn't necessarily have to like work and make money, so I reflected on this later in life. I thought it was kind of cruel for my parents to leave us alone, but it allowed me to be able to really just put my heart into this painting thing. So these are a few paintings that I did really early on as well. So there was a great big wall in the dining room that I sort of took over, and I wanted to make this King Solomon, Queen Makeda of Sheba painting is a very popular story in Ethiopia, and pretty much this story has been painted a million times. So I wanted to get to do a rendition of it, and had this great big wall. So I made this painting. It's like 8 feet long. And then the other ones I did, the stories from the Bible. So you have Noah and the flood, the story of Jacob, and again, I like to be able to write the words as well as to do pictures. I like stories. I've come to realize that I just really like stories. I feel like I'm a storyteller. So, the Bible is full of stories. Just, I feel like I've painted so many Bible stories, but I haven't even done half of them. So there's just a wealth of material there, I would say. These three pieces are Ethiopian saints. So because I was, using this style of painting, I wanted to also sort of educate people about Ethiopia and the different stories that are found there. I will say that early on when I started to do this work, people would be like, "Oh, this is so cool! You made up this style of painting or whatever." And I was like, "No, this has been around since the 4th century." So I was very happy to be able to, to show that we have a long history of Christianity, and this is not something I made up. You can go and research this. And actually, as the years went on, there have been more exhibitions around the country with Ethiopian art. More museums have been getting collections of the original Ethiopian art. So many more people are knowing about it. This is the first commission that I got, actually very early on. Again, this was in 1991. I honestly, I don't even know how. I think my children used to go to this community center, and I don't know how we got to be talking about painting, but they asked me to paint a peace mural. This was at the time when there were the Crown Heights riots. There was like tension between the Jewish population and the African Americans who lived in Crown Heights. So I painted this mural on their building, and then 11 angels throughout the neighborhood. And again, these are just some other, paintings that I made through the years. I once again, the storytelling is a big thing for me, because I like to paint. I'm not an abstract painter. I'm not painting like shapes and colors. You can see that there's like more to it, let's say. Not that abstract painting, there's anything wrong with that, but I like to have an idea. I like to have a story, something to really illustrate, even if it is a painting. I feel like the work is, I want people to really think about what it is that I'm doing. I'm really interested in showing women in the Bible and just women in general. And, so I've painted many illustrations of Mary and biblical women through the years. These are some more. I guess I'm known as well for painting women in the Bible, which is like, oh wow, women, but yeah, we're everywhere. So I'm happy to do it. Here I'm just showing how my work has been used through the years to illustrate different things in periodicals and all kinds of places. Very early on, I was picked up by an image library, Bridgman Images, who they license images to people, to publishers, what have you, to for projects. So I was really happy to be working with them now for over 20 years, because obviously it gets the work out there. And, I like to say that they found me online. They were looking online for art, what have you. And very early on, I put up a website, and I remember people, artist friends like, oh, don't do that. People are going to steal your work and this and that and the other. But, I always felt that I want people to see this stuff. I'm not just making it for myself. So it was really important to put it up, and I wasn't really worried about people stealing it. It's like, I want people to have this stuff, So anyway, I was happy to work with these guys. I like to show in this picture on the right, that's to its, on by itself here. This was one of the first books that I got, and so you see a detail of my Easter painting there with Jesus at the crucifixion, and then on the other side there's the Sacred Heart Jesus. And this was one of the Jesuses that we had hanging in my house as a child. So I remember showing this book to my father, who wasn't really sure what I was doing with my life. And he's like, oh, you're an artist, you know? So I like to show this picture. It's like, you know, it was a validation for me, I guess. These are just a few more. I actually had my work in hundreds of different places, which is really good. And, you know, in terms of getting the work out there. I like to show this Finding Forgiveness with Pope Francis because, you know, I got this book in the mail and I was looking at the cover and I was like, this is weird. It doesn't look like, something's off here. And I realized that, you know, after looking at it for a long time, the neck and around the mouth was darker because that's the color I actually painted this painting. And they actually had the nerve to lighten up the rest of it. So you see his hands and his arm, I mean, his hands and his feet and the top part of his face are this really weird color, you know. And I was thinking, it's bad enough that they did that, but they did a really bad job, you know, because this is a horrible color. But anyway, I complained, and, you know, they said that they wouldn't do that again, you know, if they published the book again. So I don't know if they would or not, but it was sort of like disappointing that, you know, they sought out, you know, a non-traditional quote unquote image of Jesus, but then they felt like they had to lighten it up. And this is just a book, a adult coloring book that I illustrated a few years ago. It was sort of interesting to do this project because, you know, as you know, the parables, they can be, you know, a sentence. And then I have to come up with this detailed picture to illustrate, you know, a kind of obscure kind of parable. But it was fun, and I got through it, and I think we did a good job with that. So this book, the Book of the Gospels, was I did this in 2001. I was commissioned by Liturgy Training Publications out of Chicago to illustrate a new reading of the Book of the Gospels, which is something that they had been working on already, this text, but the artist that they were working with passed away. So they sort of needed an artist who had existing images that could fit, and you know, and who could do more stuff. So they actually found me online once again, you know, and I did this project pretty quickly. And, you know, not being Catholic, I really didn't know what the Book of the Gospels was, really. And when I got it in the mail, I was just so surprised and just pleased to see what a special book this really was or is. And, you know, to think about, you know, the images that I grew up seeing, you know, this was like a complete, you know, completely different. And I was, you know, I was really touched by that, by being able to present like a different face for these biblical characters. And even so, most of these books of the Gospels don't actually have, you know, they don't really have illustrations like this. I guess I would say in the West. Obviously in Ethiopia, they, you know, many of the manuscripts are Book of the Gospels, but it was just a great project for me. And I was really blessed to be able to do this. And not knowing what it was all about was really something to see it when it was done. These are some pages from the inside. And at that time, there were a few exhibits, you know, with the book and paintings from the book. This was at the offices of John Cardinal Egan, who was the Cardinal of New York City at that time. And I like to show this picture here with Brother Tyrone Davis, who's I guess you could say, the leader of the Office of Black Ministry for the Catholic Church here in New York City. And, you know, I guess I met him when the Bible came out, and he was very supportive of my work and just wanting people to see it. And, you know, we've done quite a few projects since then. And so I just really appreciate him, you know, being a supporter. I must say that, you know, as far as churches go, you know, the Catholic Church is a huge supporter of art, whereas, you know, many other churches aren't. It's it's neither here nor there, but even considering the church that I used to go to growing up, there was no art at all. It was just not even a thing that they wanted to consider at all. So I really do appreciate the Catholic Church recognizing that. Obviously it has to do with people not reading early on, and so they wanted to be able to show pictures so people could understand the Bible. But to be such supporters of new art and just continuing the art, and not just Catholics, but Anglicans and Episcopalians also have a history of that too. And I'm sure other churches do as well, but I've just always been happy to work with the Catholic Church because of that history. Here I'm just showing, once again, like the Bible. It was in a movie, this Spike Lee movie. One of my friends just said, "Hey, I just saw your Bible in this movie." So I had to go and investigate that. It was quite something to see it being used in this way. And then below you can see a picture someone sent me of an ordination mass in Uganda a few years ago, and I was just so happy to see how they used the book in that setting. I'm just showing here how, okay, so several years ago, we did a crowdfunding campaign to send 14 Stations of the Cross actual paintings to a church in Haiti because they didn't have a set. They were actually using pages from a magazine that someone had like a little devotional, and it had the 14 Stations illustrated. So they taped them to the walls. And a person that I work with who fixes churches in Haiti, she was telling me about it, and I was like, oh, we should try to get some paintings together and send them paintings. So we did do an original set, and then we made 2 copies to send to two other churches. And this is a picture that one of the churches sent me with the children, showing us how they appreciated the work. These were some of the text is actually in Creole for the paintings that we sent to them, but these are some of the images from that project. And here I'm just showing, the picture on the left was a commission to do this Our Lady painting, which, as you can see in the background, Our Lady, she's got all the kids and they're all different colors. And it was just really cool to get this photo in the mail, with all these, with the kids appreciating the work. And then on the other side, I'm just showing how I got a stack of mail again with these kids. I think they were in North Carolina. Their teacher did a unit on Laura James angels. I'm pretty sure it's a religious school, but the children did their own angels and they wrote to me, and it was just so cool. And I really loved how, they were the colors of the people who drew them. It's not like they were trying to draw little black angels, because that's what I do. They drew them the way that they saw themselves, which I think is the most important thing. And it was really cool to see them do that. So I like to include this picture. And here I'm just showing again, back to the school thing. A Catholic school district in Canada a few months ago, they asked, well, they got 60 prints for, one for each of their schools, because, once again, they're like trying to show a different image of the biblical characters. And this is a calendar that I was commissioned to do for liturgy training publications again. LTP, I'll abbreviate. They're one of 3 publishers that are licensed, I guess, to make periodicals and texts for the Catholic Church. So, this is one reason why I've been working with them for all these years. So this is a calendar that's out now. And, I like the opportunity. These calendars are typically posted in schools. So, once again, I like the idea of being able to show children like, artwork that's inclusive of everybody. So I'll just talk a little bit about the secular work that I do. So, once I started painting in 1991 or so, I was doing a lot of religious paintings. I started with the Ethiopian style, and like I said, there was such a wealth of stories in the Bible. But early on, I wanted to paint other things too. I didn't just want to paint biblical stories. But in that style, I did this little series of paintings that are based on slavery, American slave history, because that was something that I was interested in, and I wanted to see if I could, use the Ethiopian imagery to illustrate a slave narrative, and so that's what I did here. The last piece, called A Sermon for Our Ancestors, I wanted to do a Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. And when I was reading the different verses, I was thinking this really lends itself to slave imagery, blessed are the meek, and the whole thing. So that piece was actually picked up by this, I think they're called it's the I can't see it right here, but this organization, the VCS, right, the Visual Commentary on Scripture. It's a website that has, hundreds of pictures, and they comment on them, on biblical images. So they use that image, and the commentary was really, I was really touched by it. And she's the person who called it Black is Blessed, and I really like that title. And here I'm just showing, this is some of my secular work, like slavery and, and women in general. I like to paint sort of things that are not popular. And this is a series of paintings I did about domestic workers and nannies. My mother was both. So I've had like I'm familiar with the subject, so there are lots of stories there as well. So I did a series of paintings around that we've taken around to different colleges and different places where we talk about the plight of the domestic worker, which there is it is early on when I was doing this work, they were agitating for a Bill of Rights because there were just so many things normal employment things that were not being offered to nannies and domestic workers. So we were actually agitating in Albany to have this bill passed, and it was passed. But anyway, it's a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I'm just showing here, I've illustrated 2 children's books with this publisher out of Canada. And moving back to the nanny, I was just recently commissioned or hired, I guess, to write, actually, thank you very much, and illustrate a book called My Mother Was a Nanny. So that's one of the things that I'm working on now. And it has nothing to do with this topic, but I just had to throw it in there because I'm so excited about being able to do this work and to show, it's a children's book, it's a picture book, and lots of children have Caribbean nannies, like who knew? Or just, nannies who are not, who look like me, let's say. So I'm really happy to be able to, it's a good little story too, I must admit. So I'm excited about it, and that'll be coming out in a couple of years. This is just briefly, again, I do a series, or I'm doing a series of paintings on race and reparations. This painting is called Inheritance, because as a painter and as someone who's a thinker and can see like the injustice that is out there in the world, I like to this is another story for me to show why reparations are actually something that is a just cause. This painting is called Not Even Past, and it basically is like a commentary on police brutality, from lynching time to George Floyd. So now this is a commission that I did earlier this year for a group called Deconstructing Racism, or the Bible, I'm sorry, I don't, you can probably see the title there, but I can't see it on my screen. But they, Christianity Deconstructs Racism, that's what they're called. And so they use the Bible to, and Bible stories to talk about race. And this painting is based on the blind man from Bethsaida, also called The Second Touch, where Jesus sort of, it doesn't take the first time, I guess, or he sees things, he doesn't see things clearly, after the first time Jesus touches him, but then the second time he can see things more clearly. So the idea was, with voting disparities and redlining and, lynching and the chain gang and all this, there's more to it than just what we see. Let's say there's, we should look closer at what is really going on. I think that was their point. This is another commission that I just finished, which is about Mary Magdalene, working with a progressive Catholic group. Their aim is to re-image Mary Magdalene into the image of what is actually in the Bible and the text, as you can read on the bottom, where she is the apostle to the apostles, and where Jesus commissions her, to go and tell the other disciples that he's been resurrected. So this is a project that I finished for them. And, it's their mission to have Mary Magdalene recognized in the Catholic Church in particular. And then this project is what I'm working on now, another project, which is the University of the South. They commissioned me to make a new crucifix for this space, which is in one of their chapels. This college was, or is, a private Episcopalian college that was actually started in the 1850s by, I guess you could say, a group of slave traders and slave owners who did not want to follow what the Northern Episcopalian Church wanted to do. So they broke off and they gave a whole bunch of money to start this school, the University of the South. So I don't know, 150 years later, there was like a whole a commission to talk about changing some of the imagery of the once again, the biblical figures and statues and what have you around the school. So this was one space where they thought that they would, do something different. I was commissioned to make a crucifix based on this crucifix where Jesus is standing on the cross, where he's not like slumped over and suffering. This type of image is really the first kind of images that you see about the crucifixion. Jesus is standing on the cross. He's not suffering and dying once again. So they commissioned me to do something like that. So this is where I'm at with it now. I'm almost done, but not quite. But yeah. So the back of the cross is a tree of life pattern. So it'll go into that beautiful space, and I'm really excited about it. I've been working on it for quite a while, but it's almost done, and I'm sure that I'll go there and we'll unveil it, and it will be great. So finally, as Jeffrey mentioned earlier, just a couple of weeks ago, this group, Discerning Deacons, they used this image that I painted of Phoebe. I actually made this image for St. Anthony's Messenger magazine. They were doing a story about house churches, and so they asked me to paint this piece. And I hadn't really thought much of it, but through the years, it's been used by many different organizations, who particularly want to see more women participating in the church, whatever denomination it is. So they were in October last month, they were at the Pope Francis's Global Synod, and they presented a print of this piece, which they actually use sort of as a logo for their organization. So I was really, they emailed this to me. It was like Pope Francis, and I opened it. I was like, wow, that's cool. So I was really happy to see that. It was really something. So I think that is the end of the presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Laura. That was wonderful. And we're going to open it up now to questions and answers. So if you have a question, you would just send me a message in chat and I'll unmute you and you can ask Laura your question. But before they get a chance, I want to ask you a question. Your work is so beautiful, but it's so detailed. Could you describe a little bit of the process you go through in creating one of these works?
Yeah, details. I really like details. You know, it goes back to just wanting to really show something, you know, really like a feast for the eyes, let's say. And you know, when I'm doing something, even in this painting here, you see all these people and all these eyes and all the tree leaves, and I'm always thinking to myself, I only have to do it once. I only have to do it once, you know. So, but I like details. I like to put a lot in. Obviously, not just for the heck of it, you know. Everything has meaning, but I'm, you know, not besides the Ethiopian Christian art, I was just also attracted to icons, you know, in general, like European icons and these, and even like Southeast Asian miniatures and things like this. I like detailed details. I just like it.
So how do you put together something like the artwork you have posted here? You have all of these images of different people. How does that come about? Is that just, you know, is there a process you go through?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Well, the first thing I do, okay, so if I have a commission or even just if it's a Bible story, you know, I really want to read it several times, you know, different translations, because I don't, you know, I'm not recreating Bibles, you know, I'm not retelling the story. I'm just picturing it. So I really like to stay true to the story. So I will look at it, I will read it a few different times, a few different translations, like I said, and then I'll do a sketch. And I do like very detailed sketches, you know, with exactly what I want to see in the painting. And, you know, early on, I didn't do this, but, you know, for the last 20 years or so, I actually project the sketch onto my canvas. So, and then I'll draw it from there. So it's my finished art is very close to the sketch. And, you know, I'm sort of jealous of people who can just like go and just start painting and stuff like this. Cause, you know, I don't do that at all. You know, everything is really planned out.
Okay. We have a question. I'm going to ask Eusebio Cortez to unmute himself. Eusebio is a student at the Franciscan School of Theology who is an artist in his own right. And so he's beginning his career. So we'll see what he has to say. Eusebio, you there?
Hi, Jeff. Yes.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Hi, Laura. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Hello. Thank you.
Oh man,
I've been looking at you for the whole thing because you're the little face on the side. So
all right.
I'm glad you get to talk.
I wish I could invite you to coffee or when you're in San Diego. I just have all these questions that I want to ask you. You know, I could spend days and days asking you. But I just have two questions real quick. I know, like Jeff said, I do illustrations. Real quick, I do graphic design, but I did a lot of a studio art myself. But just a quick question, because I did for my undergrad, I took art history. You know, I did 101 with anatomy and all these, like the proportion wise. And then one of my question was, so at the beginning, when you started painting, I know you mentioned that you were self-taught. Have you seen a progression of a style that you kind of like throughout the year? Have you seen something that you weren't doing at the beginning and then
oh yeah,
right now,
100%.
even the present year?
Definitely. You know, I like to say practice makes perfect. You know, it's kind of corny, but it's true. So I definitely have seen progress, you know, in my work and just different techniques and what have you. You know, I'm working on something now and it's like, I'm like, I should know better. Like, I shouldn't have done that. I should have done it the other way. But, so you're always learning with the art, I think. I mean,
Yeah,
once
I
you're
saw
doing
that.
something
I saw that
that is
on the
always
last.
the same, it's kind of boring, actually. So it's good to, practice and try new things,
Yeah, on your last piece, the most recent one, the one with the commission with the college, that one is beautiful. It's you
Oh,
can see
thank you.
the kind of like the your where you at right now as far as your art. And then the last question, I know there's other people, but the last question is, have you got any criticism from critics or church leaders? Have you had any criticism or just the public in general about the art that you do show to display?
Yeah, it's interesting that you ask. I really haven't. I haven't had any real criticism. I think that most people who appreciate the work, that they understand. They understand that, oh, there's not just white people in the world. You know what I mean? It's not that deep. Now the people who are, let's say, maybe racist or who just don't want to see anything, these people could perhaps be angry about it, but I've never heard from them, so that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I wish I can stay longer.
Well,
Thank you.
my email is there. It's artlady.
I'm writing it down. Yeah.
And you can ask me anything you want.
Thank
So
you.
thank you
Thank you
very
for your
much.
time.
Thank you.
We had a question, Laura, about where you could purchase the Book of the Gospels. Is that still available?
It is. Well, actually, now it's in its second edition. It's actually a little bit smaller than the first edition, but you can find it at ltp.org. So that's liturgytrainingpublications.org.
Okay. And we had a question from Curran. So Curran, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, Laura. Thank you for
Hello.
a wonderful presentation. Your artwork is beautiful and moving, and I could probably get lost in just one piece of work for a long time. Just out of curiosity, something that stood out in some of the paintings involving the nannies, I noticed the children were holding balloons with a long string. I just didn't know if there was any significance to that or.
Well, strings in general, like I use strings in those paintings, not in the children's book, but in those paintings, I use these strings sort of to show that people are tied together or that they're connected, let's say, but they're also like held down and held back. The string is an interesting thing for me because I can like divide the canvas and, in different ways to show different things. So it has meaning, aesthetically, let's say, but also in the fact that it can be used to tie people down, and that's a theme of being a domestic worker. So,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
We have a question from our live audience. Live audience, what's your question?
I just wanted to say that I love how colorful your artwork is. I love bright colors and I'm so drawn to it. And so I was watching as the presentation went along and I thought, this artwork looks familiar to me. And so then you brought up a slide that showed that you had done an illustration for the cover of an introduction to New Testament textbook. And I have that textbook and that's why I recognize your artwork. So
Okay,
that's it's just a little thrilling.
So could you hear her?
I heard most of it, but she said
Okay.
something about seeing my work in a textbook.
Yeah, Introduction to New Testament. And it's the
Oh,
cover.
okay.
So there's, Eusebio is holding it up. Eusebio, hold it up one more time. So, yes, so she was very excited to see that work.
Yeah, this has been like a really great thing that, once again, being able to have my work licensed through Bridgman Images, just the fact that, the work just goes places that I never would have been able to do on my own. I mean, it would have taken a long time, but once again, people are like, oh, don't let people use your images. They're going to steal your images. It's like, It's like, it's okay, I don't mind. I don't mind. It's not that I don't mind, because I do license the images, but you know what I mean? It's like, I want people to see my work, that's the whole point of this, I mean, it really is, So I'm glad that she saw my work on that book.
Yes, is Betty there? Betty has a question. If you would unmute yourself, you could ask your question, Betty.
Hi, yes, thank you so much, Laura. I just wanted to thank you. I kind of stumbled upon this event. I'm a new staff member here at USD. I'm an Ethiopian, and I just
Okay.
Googled your name and I was like, whoa, I didn't know what I had stumbled upon. So I definitely wanted to make sure to just say thank you for using Ethiopian style. It's so beautiful. It's definitely just in line with all of the, Orthodox Christian religious
Exactly.
Thank you. So it's beautiful.
And that's why I like to make the point that it's been around since the 4th century. It pains me to say that this is non-traditional art, because it's not. It's not. It's very traditional. It's just that we're here in the West, so it's not.
Yes, but I thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
thank you for coming.
yes, and have you ever been to Ethiopia? Do you have
No,
a plan?
I haven't been. I really would like to go. I'm a little like, it's kind of far, I must admit, on those planes. It's not the most fun thing to do, but I will go, and I will certainly go.
Yes, we would love to have you. I'm just saying. Thank you so much.
I'm definitely going to get there. 100%.
So we have a question from Cynthia. Cynthia, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here. You're talking about me here?
Yes.
Your Hobson? Oh, yeah, I was just wondering again, what was Miss James' email address? So she mentioned she.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
It's Art Lady.
Could you put the last screen back up?
Oh, okay.
Laura? And you
Let's
could.
see if I could.
And I had a comment too.
Okay.
And my comment is, I'm an artist also, and I paint Bible stories.
Okay.
And now I know I'm not crazy because I always paint my art stories using Black images also. And it actually started when one of my sons, when he was very young, asked me, are there any Black angels? Mm-hmm. And that just really struck me, because when I looked around, like through my Bible, and when I go to church at the images and those kind of things, there were no little Black angels flying around in the images. So right. That motivated me to start drawing Bible stories using Black images. So I can relate a lot to what Laura has been sharing with us. Mm-hmm. And I love her style. It's a style that if you see it, you're going to automatically know it's her. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, so you have there, you can see on the screen, her website's laurajamesart.com, and her email address there's artlady777@gmail.com. So please feel free to contact her, and don't be afraid to order some of these prints. They're absolutely beautiful. Yeah. I have several hanging in my living room now as I became acquainted with Laura's artwork. Let me ask you a question about your own faith tradition, if you have one. Do you have a faith tradition you come out of, or you just deal with all of these as they come to you?
Well, I mean, I work with many different churches, many different denominations. And even my own personal faith tradition, or whatever it was that you said, it's kind of weird because I don't really know about all these labels. I wouldn't say like I don't consider myself a Christian, but I definitely am a follower of Christ and his message. And I think that is, that's the thread through all of these religions, which is why I'm dealing with the Bible as far as stories are concerned, and illustrating these stories, and really understanding them, I think, and because it's not, sometimes I kind of feel like I'm just painting this, but it's not that. It's not just that, because I understand what it is that I'm painting. I get it, and I'm familiar with I'm familiar with the Bible and what have you, so it's not just, I'm just blindly painting. But I kind of don't remember your question. but it's Christ, you know, and it's that story, love one another, you know, it's you know, we're all divine and all of that, you know, so that's my faith tradition.
Yeah, you have the one painting called Love One Another, which is an amazing collection. What is the genesis of that
Well, you
painting?
know,
And what is your
that that
Go ahead.
painting has actually been like a very popular painting for me, and I really like that painting too. And basically, the Liturgy Training Publications, the publisher, Gabe Huck. You know, he was, because before I worked with them in 2000, everyone I painted was Black all the time, or with shades of brown or what have you. You know, just pretty homogeneous as it is in traditional Ethiopian art. But they asked that I paint, you know, younger people and older people. So I started to do like the salt and pepper hair and, you know, just different shades of people. And for that picture in particular, Love One Another, you know, that was for the Book of the Gospels. And it was supposed to be just, you know, an image with many people, just, you know, many different kinds of people. And so I was happy to do that. And not just with that painting, but with all of the new paintings for that book, to really, because, you know, I mean, I could paint Black people all day long, but there are not just Black people on the planet. You know what I mean? So I like to paint everybody, you know, old and young and Black and white and everything in between, you know. I want to show, it's not just about being inclusive or being cool or PC or whatever. It's the truth of what is really what I see. You know what I mean? There are all these people, and we can pretend that we don't see them, but they are still here.
Mhm. Can
Right.
can you reverse your show and go back to a few of the pieces? You went through them fairly fast.
Oh,
But
sorry about that.
that's all right. Could you go back to the Stations of the Cross?
Okay. I did I've done 2 versions of the Stations of the Cross. It's you know, once again, it's just this,
There we go.
yeah,
There you go.
this
Well,
long story.
I'm just going to leave that up while we're talking, so that people can have a little bit of a chance to look at them. They're all such wonderful depictions. Do you have a favorite piece that you've done, or is
I
that
have a lot
impossible
of
to?
favorite pieces. I have a lot. I really do like that painting, A Sermon for Our Ancestors,
Mhm.
with the slave imagery with the Sermon on the Mount. You know, it was really meaningful to me. You know, I've heard said so many times, you know, like, why are Black people Christians? You know, like, this is not about us. And, you know, it's like, where was Jesus during slavery and all of this, you know, which, hey, you can make an argument for all of this stuff, you know what I'm saying? But I've being able to marry those words with the slave imagery, it was just really meaningful for me. And then to see like the city of gold and, you know, how it kind of turns out, quote unquote, in the central panel. Let me just see if I can find that picture, because I'm talking about it.
Yeah, let's go forward.
I'm not exactly sure where it is, actually.
It's towards the end of your presentation, so you want to
Oh.
go the
Go
opposite
forward.
direction.
Oh.
Yeah.
But in any case, that is definitely, oh, there it is in the corner. That is one of my favorite pieces. A Sermon for Our Ancestors.
So if people wanted to get copies of some of these prints, what would they do? What should they do?
Well, you could just email me at artlady777@gmail.com. And, you know, I will say that, you know, many artists, they don't make prints. And that's another thing people would tell me. You know, I didn't really listen to people, because I wasn't really coming from an art place. I was just sort of fell into this. But, you know, it's like, don't make prints, you know, it like cheapens everything and what have you. But I really don't feel that way. Once again, I want people to have the art. And they make very good quality prints now, you know, so they're very good, because, you know, obviously I want the work to be shown in its best light. So I'm not going to make crappy prints, you know, but I love it that people can buy prints, and, you know, and to have a piece of my work it's great that people appreciate it. And I'm really, once again, I'm really happy to have the opportunity to speak with you guys tonight. And Cortez Zarate, I'm still looking at you because you're right there. And, you look very interested. So I think this was probably fun for us.
Well, thank you very much, Laura. It was a wonderful presentation. We love your art. It's just beautiful. And it just fits so many different contexts and has so many profound messages. And just the painting, the sermon for your ancestors, you could spend a long, long time looking at that and trying to discern what's going on and to draw the lessons from it. So thank you very much for your great artwork. Just
Thank you.
again, if you want to purchase her work, it's at laurajamesart.com, and please check her out. This presentation has been recorded, and we will be posting it on the Center for Catholic Thought and Culture website, its YouTube channel. So you're welcome to check that out as well. So thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Everybody
I really
will give her
appreciate it.
applause. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Great.
You.
Thank you all for coming and attending, and spread the word
Okay.
about Laura's great work. I don't know if you can
Thank you
see.
very much, Jeffrey.
Can you
Have
see
a
the chat?
lovely evening.
Can you see the chat, Laura?
Oh, wait, let me see the chat.
There's a few just giving their well wishes to you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So anyway.
Oh, I'm seeing this question about doing a self-portrait. I actually did my only well, actually that's not true. I have done a few self-portraits, but I've done one called my self-portrait as Frida Kahlo. And it's like a sort of, it's like a, it's, I don't know, I can't explain it, but it's on my website and you probably see it, but it's from behind. But it has that Frida Kahlo type thing because she's also one of my favorite artists. I love color and, the Caribbean sensibility, Mexican art and what have you. And, as an artist, I would say too, just look at what's out there. It's like, it's great to have your own ideas. And obviously, you have your own ideas, but there's so many people and so many things and just so many beautiful things to look at. It's and living in New York and being able to go to the museums and what have you, even though everything is online, we really need to make ourselves available to not just be comfortable, but to look at new things.
Thank you. Are you familiar with the artist John August Swanson?
Oh yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I love his work as well.
Yeah, he unfortunately just passed.
Oh, did he?
This last month, and his funeral will actually be November 13th. Will be the private funeral, and the public funeral will be for November 18th.
Wow,
So he was a great artist, and shares many of the traits of your work as well. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks to everyone. We'll see you at a future event. Hopefully, we'll get you out here in person one day.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Have a good night, everybody.